there, and welcome to the Surviving Trauma Stories of Hope podcast. This week on the podcast, I am joined by the incredible Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro. Marni is an award-winning author, speaker, and educator. Marni's 2020 Best Books Award-winning spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale, is prominently endorsed by James Redfield, best-selling author of the Celestine Prophecy series of books. Marni also has her latest books out, which is a 5-book series called Deceit False Love, which provides information and tools to handle life's challenges with love, compassion, and positivity. In this episode, Marni and I talk about her numerous trauma-induced, life-changing, spiritually transformative encounters, how to stay true to your values, keeping a positive attitude during adversity, self-love, and so much more. This episode was mind-blowing, and I truly enjoyed connecting with Marni, and I hope this is going to resonate with you too. Thank you to my listeners for joining me on this journey. Comment on the posts on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and let me know what you think of the episode. Also, head to Amazon.com and get your copy of my book, Ray of Light, and please leave me a rating and review. It would mean the world to me. As always, stay tuned and keep listening. Hi, good day, Marni. How are you? Or shall I say, Dr. Hill Foderaro?
Marni is just fine, and I am doing great.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy that we got to connect, and what an honor to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to be, on your podcast, Surviving Trauma, Stories of Hope, because I am someone who has survived trauma, and there is hope after.
Thank you. And I must say that, when I was reading your bio and, just all of the accomplishments, that you've achieved in your life, the ones that really stood out for me was the fact that, you've spent all this time dedicating yourself to the education system, 35 years of high school special education, 12 years university as an adjunct graduate school professor. I mean, I take my hat off to you, and I just want to thank you for standing in service and dedication to our youth and our young adults.
Oh, well, it was an honor to be a teacher for so many years. And so it was a calling, and I was just honored to be able to influence young adults in such a positive way.
That's fantastic, because I also come from a family of teachers, so I understand what it is that they go through and what the impact is that they have and how they shape those lives, So yeah, thank you so much for your contribution. I wanted to ask you, how did you, and I think, maybe because I recently in my own life made a bit of a transition, how did you make that transition from educator to becoming an award-winning author and speaker and being so accomplished in, speaking on television, various podcasts, and exerting your influence now in a different way?
Well, it really wasn't part of the plan, but I think that so much of our lives and our journey, it's influenced by what we do and choices we make. But I think that there's also some divine intervention that plays a role. But, I was close to my retirement after 35 years as an educator. And I decided to make a very big life change where I left a marriage after 27 years. And with that choice came a lot of repercussions that included trauma. And I didn't realize that in my quest to get myself to a safe and happier environment, knowing that my children were adults and that, I needed to take care of myself at that point, I had no idea that abusers will obsess over you. And actually, a lot of the trauma ramps up afterwards, not only because you uncover a lot of things that you weren't aware of, and you are left like picking up the pieces of your life. In my case, I lost my home, my money, my assets, even my adult children to parental alienation. So I was just thrown into a shocking situation at a certain time in my life when really I should be on top of the world and, enjoying the fruits of my labor. But, you know, there is a plan for everything. And I have always handled challenges and adversity in a very positive way, just hopeful, knowing that I am a good person, and really believed that truth and goodness eventually prevails. And that is what kind of, helped me through the trauma. And a big part of that, I believe, is doing some inner work and going back to your own childhood and your own, experiences within your family that mold and shape you into the person that you are. And, what would make me a target for an abuser? What would make me an overgiver or an extreme empath? And just learning about those things really helped me come to terms with what I was dealing with. And of course, one of the biggest shocks, you can lose material possessions. I'm not very material money driven. I'm more driven about relationships and connections. And losing my adult children was really just so shocking that it kind of put me into a post-traumatic stress situation. And again, I remained positive and optimistic, did absolutely everything in my power for many years to try to negate the terrible effects of this very destructive family dynamic, that is done by a perpetrator purposely. But I also found research to be very helpful there, so I could understand parental alienation, understand what my adult children were going through. And then it made a lot more sense for me. But I ended up deciding to, after I retired, write about some miracle experiences I had. And that was my first writing endeavor, which was God Came to My Garage Sale. And really enjoyed that experience. And I was writing about very positive things that I had gone through during a very dark time when I could have really been negative. I was very positive. And I was so honored that book won some awards and was highly endorsed. But then it really prompted me to write a lot more. I wrote a 5-book series called True Deceit False Love that actually addresses domestic violence and narcissistic abuse and parental alienation, and then intergenerational family trauma. And that I found very healing, and it was very well received by people in the abuse recovery community. And, in the midst of that, I did a lot of self-care and decided to move from a lifetime in the Chicago, Illinois, USA suburbs to the Caribbean. And that is where I live now. And I'm enjoying my life as an author here, immersed in nature.
That's fantastic. I mean, I love how, our life experiences, because that's what I hear you say, our life experiences is really what drives the choices that we make. And that brings on that transition, how you transition out of one into the other. And now you're living this wonderful life in the Caribbean, doing what you love. But I want to just go back a little bit. I want you to tell the listeners and because I picked up that you were talking about several different life experiences that you've undergone. And some of them are, if not all of them, are incredibly heavy and dark experiences that can really take you to the depths of despair. One of the life-changing experiences that you had was the trauma-induced, spiritually transformative encounters. Now, I was very curious about that. Do you want to elaborate and tell us a bit more about what that experience was like for you?
Sure, I would be very happy to. In fact, anyone that has had some transformative experiences that involve otherworldly events and the divine on a very spiritual nature, you're almost compelled to share your story about what happened, because it's so miraculous. And, I was at a place where I could have been very sad and angry and, in despair, but I was really in a state of gratitude. So the way I chose to look at my challenges was really through a lens of positivity and thankfulness. And when I did,
Beautiful.
yeah, well, it was, it's, I didn't really think about it. It's just that's how I operate, from a place of
Yes.
goodness and light. And
Yeah.
it's almost like I did have this garage sale where, I had to unload all these material possessions, and I knew I was in a transition state, but definitely in a state of gratitude. And I had one miracle experience after another happen at this garage sale or around the garage sale that really opened up my mind that I was being supported by some divine intervention. And, I really needed proof and evidence. And I think I got that because so many different things happened. And I go into them in detail in my spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale. Even though it's a fiction, it's really based on true experiences. But, there was a dragonfly experience where I was surrounded by almost 100 dragonflies. And there were
Wow.
times where I got messages through electronics and from departed loved ones.
That's
There were
incredible.
dream visitations. There were times when there were people that came to the garage sale that I don't even remember how they got there or how they left, but they made a very big impact. And some of them actually appeared otherworldly, or even one person even levitated over the ground with a group of people underneath, just like disciples, kind of looking at their Savior. And moments before, I don't even remember anyone being at the garage sale. And then, of course, they were just very common experiences with feathers and pennies and red cardinals and songs being played on the radio, or things that you would think would be coincidences, but that really weren't. And this
Yes.
happened, early on when I chose to divorce after 27 years. And boy, it just provided me with reassurance and hope, and just a wonderful sense of that I would be okay. And all of these experiences were, there was like no time, like time stood still. There was, everything was in slow motion. It was almost as if I was teleported out of my body. And, you know, it was just amazing. And, I wouldn't have believed these things if it didn't really happen to me. And, with some of the experiences, I had witnesses there that saw the same thing. So that was very validating. And then it led me on a quest to just look into spirituality and really do a lot of research with people that have had near death experiences, NDEs, which are similar to what I had, which was STEs, spiritually transformative experiences. But I didn't have to like flatline or die in the physical sense to experience these. And there are so many accounts and so much scientific backing now. And there are platforms where we can share these experiences, where it's much more common than most people would think. So that's the beginning experiences that I had that kind of laid the foundation for me to feel like, I was making the right choice. Even though this was a very tough decision to make, I knew life would never be the same. I didn't know at the time that it would get tremendously worse before it got better. But I was confident that I was staying true to my values of honesty and goodness and compassion, and I needed to stay true to my values.
I'm listening to you, and every single word resonates. These transformative experiences, they come when we are shedding parts of ourselves after we make that decision to choose ourselves. And we have to shed part of that life that we leave behind. And it can be a very transformative, even what you described, as if you were there watching yourself go through that.
Right.
And I think that and I think that when that happens, the
Right.
synchronicities
Yes.
and the strangers that come up to us and impart knowledge that leaves you changed, that changes your mind about things, opens your mind up to things, gives you a new perspective. I believe that that is all just part of God's work to help us and to give us the assurance that we are not alone, because we say that quite often, don't we? But we truly are not alone. And here you are testifying to that. You receive that spiritual assurance in your life to know that you're making the right decision. We've got your back and things are going to be okay. And that's what we need.
Oh my gosh. You said that beautifully, and you just, I resonate too with every single thing that you say, because that is really what happened to me. And they can be just brief moments, but they can be life changing.
I agree. Yes. And I think you only really see them in hindsight.
Definitely. Yep.
And then it's sort of this revelation that comes over you, right? Because you're doing a mundane task, you're doing the dishes, or you're driving somewhere on a back road and it hits you and you see everything clearly and you understand.
Right. And it didn't happen right away. Like, I know I experienced these things and I know they were miracles, but it's almost like our bodies, our human bodies and minds and hearts can only process so much. And even though there's no time on the other side, I believe that, because really my experiences and what I've researched on with other people, that really time as we know it in our earthly realm does not exist in other worlds. And
Yes.
and so it's almost like time was needed to process all of this, first just subconsciously, but then after you are starting to connect the dots to your experience, then you put more conscious effort into trying to understand and make sense of what you've been through.
Yes. And it's an incredible experience. And I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about how I view them, because it's almost as if when we go through it, we close a life path in order to step into another life path.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, I was closing a door by choice to this life that I believed that I was destined for, being a mother and being a wife and being a teacher. But really, as wonderful as so many parts of that were, I did have to transition from, the life that I knew to something unknown. But it was like I couldn't go back. I had to stay true to my values. And even though there are tremendous losses as a result of my decision, tremendous. I mean, any father or mother that loses their children to a false narrative, has them ripped away from your life, there's something that, it's just hard to describe, that you can really, in many ways, never recover from that deep loss and that pain. But at the same time, I was shown that everyone has a journey, and that there are reasons for so many different things, and that we are supported and loved beyond what we just think our circle is. And that just gives me so much hope. And, and it was so important for me to stay true to my values, because I didn't want to settle. I am someone who cannot lie for the life of me. Nor do I ever want to. I am a truth teller. I am a truth seeker. That's one of the biggest values I have. And I can no longer resonate with those that are dishonest.
Yeah.
And so some of the choices I've had to make were almost made for me because of staying true to those values.
Yes. And I think that when we choose ourselves in that way, and we say we're staying true to who we are, we see how the people who did not serve us start to fall away.
Yes, they do.
And sometimes it's incredibly painful to lose those people, but necessary.
Right. And I think, with an earthly psychological explanation, we have been trauma bonded with a number of different people, whether it's a family member or a close friend, or a situation. And it does take a lot of work to release those trauma bonds. But when you're on the right path, because very good things will come your way that you never dreamed you would experience. But yes, the losses are real and we have to grieve them, but it doesn't mean that we have to stop living life.
Right. And I always say that grief is transient, because we learn with grief that we can experience heartbreak and sorrow, but it's okay to laugh too during that time. Right?
Yes.
Because sometimes we feel that we've experienced this loss, we've experienced this heartache, and so laughter is almost inappropriate.
There are a number of people that cannot recover from these traumas. They are stuck and they make choices that are not necessarily healthy for them or others around them. And so I think it does take some strength to find the motivation within yourself to carry on. And I found writing to be extremely therapeutic in my healing journey.
Yes. And I love that you coupled that with the self-love aspect. I mean, if I take a step back, right, your experiences that you write about in your 5-series book, it basically covers domestic violence. It covers narcissistic abuse, parental alienation,
Yes.
intergenerational family trauma. And that is what you had to leave behind. And with all of those descriptions and narratives in one's life, it comes with a deep heaviness that we carry, right? Because this is 27 years that we're talking about. It takes that huge transformation to shed that in order to step into this new life path and embrace that. In your healing path, you've chosen writing, and I love that you've coupled it with the self-love, because I think when we've done the work that you speak about, making that hard choice, taking the action, packing the bags and leaving, dealing with the consequences and accepting the consequences of that decision, that's really when we start to heal. And what forms of self-love really resonated with you that helped you to leave all of that darkness behind?
Well, I think speaking the truth and sharing stories to hopefully inspire others that may find themselves in similar challenging situations to realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel. No pun intended, so I think that is something that I have done for self-love. And the style of writing I did was very unique. I didn't write a tell-all book or an autobiographical account. I wrote a reference book on terms and phrases, actually 15,555 terms and phrases.
Well done.
And that's not even a conclusive list, because, the verbiage for describing trauma and things that people go through continues to be developed on a daily basis. And so I just had to stop at some point. But I also explored poetry. And I also did a survivor's workbook to help other people. And then, even to lighten things up and provide a different approach for healing, I did a word search puzzle book where there are terms and phrases, because I really believe the language helps us make sense of what we've been through. Language has the power to hurt people. And many people in domestic violence situations, it's not all physical. It can be very much emotional and verbal. And language is a big part of being hurt. But language and words also have that power to heal and to bring awareness and understanding. So the word search puzzle book was, just a very creative, different approach, where people can read about the different things related, different components related to a particular term while they're doing a relaxing, distracting, therapeutic word search puzzle. But other things that I have done for self-care, I think one big one was to move to the Caribbean, to move to a new location, to explore a new culture, a new surrounding, and then, of course, to be immersed in nature, because I believe that, there are so many miracles that we can see in nature. And to be right there, to be able to swim in the ocean every day, or hike the rainforest, or come into contact with plants and animals that I had never seen before, was just fascinating for me. And then, of course, at some point, you need to take care of yourself physically. You need to eat nutritious food. And that's one thing I'm doing here in the Caribbean. We grow most of all of our food organically on our property. Yeah, so we have extensive gardens.
Fantastic.
And so locally sourced pretty much everything. So that is, getting away from like the processed store-bought things that I would have had when I lived in the Chicago suburbs. I'm really living more organically and off the land, and it's really changed my body because I am just putting nutritious food in there. Also, I'm getting restorative sleep. And I think, people that go through trauma or life changes, it's very easy to lose sleep and to stay up and to spend your time ruminating and going over, reliving your trauma over and over without really taking time to let your body rest. And so I have fantastic sleep now. But I also am not in my day job as an educator where I needed to wake up to an alarm clock and all of that. So, I'm at a phase in my life where I can really embrace sleeping and enjoying that. And then moderate exercise. But, as opposed to putting on a matching outfit and, driving over to a gym to jump up and down with a group of people, I'm actually getting natural exercise by swimming in the ocean or hiking or horseback riding.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm really getting exercise in more of a natural way.
Oh,
and that resonates
heaven.
much, much more with me. So I think there's lots of things to do, to take care of yourself. Another thing is just pursuing your passions. So if you are someone that, stopped listening to music that you liked or stopped painting, even though that was very therapeutic for you, you can pick that back up. You can, do some hobbies that you used to really enjoy, or take up new hobbies and try some new experiences. But I have found one really healthy way to deal with challenges is to let the creative side of you come through. And for me, there are many different things that I've been involved in with. I've always kind of been a creative soul, but the writing really kind of exploded when I got here to the Caribbean.
I think I want to move to the Caribbean now. It sounds heavenly.
Well, but you know what? I will tell you, Marlene, I could find beauty and happiness wherever I was planted. So I can be in the middle of an urban city. I could be out in the country where, there's not another house for miles and miles. I could be in the snow and the sleet. I could be in the sunshine. So, I just would like to say, though, even I'm really enjoying my surroundings, I think people, and myself included, could find beauty wherever they are. And so much is in what we make it and what we appreciate.
That is such a beautiful message. One of the things that I learned was, when you were talking earlier about losing your home, I also experienced losing my home. And I remember I used to cling to the idea of these four walls. And it was so difficult to let go of what I had built and what I had owned and what was mine. But I came to realize that a home and happiness and joy and peace you can find wherever you are. It's not tied to four walls, which I think we make that mistake so often.
No, it isn't.
And that's not what the house was, not my home, and it was not my happiness, and it was not my joy.
And you've heard the expression, home is where the heart is.
Yes.
Or home is where, you make it.
Yes.
And you also have gone through challenges when you lose that safety and security that you worked so hard to create. And, in my case, that's where I raised my two beautiful children for, 2 decades. And I wanted to provide that stable environment for them. Had no idea that there was so much deceit and betrayal and money manipulation that what I thought was, paid off and safe and secure was not at all. I didn't realize that, I knew the person I was dealing with that I escaped from was dishonest. I knew that for many years, but I didn't know the extent of the dishonesty. And so, really, when you're forced to let go, you have choices to make, and I just chose to make the best of a bad situation. And little did I know that my life would expand in beautiful ways, much greater than what I had experienced, what I thought was so wonderful. And part of that is because I'm true to myself and values, and I'm surrounding myself, I'm choosing to be around like-minded people that are honest and loving and have some of the same values. And I believe, it ties into spirituality as well, because, once you have some miracle experiences and you see all sorts of things, you cannot unsee what you have seen.
Yeah.
So to have other people in your life that get it, that really get it, you do have to either make choices, or even naturally people fall by the wayside that really were never really true friends or connections. They might have been there through obligation or through history or through trauma bonding. But the best is really yet to come when you have an open mind and you have a positive attitude.
Yes. That positive attitude, it really drives healing. Having that attitude of thankfulness and gratitude that you spoke of earlier. If you have that perspective, it already makes your circumstances different, because I think if you are grateful, you live in the present, because it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, you are grateful for it, and you see it as the blessing that it is. So that even if you lose everything, you say, well, thank you very much for the clothes on my back and the fact that I can pay my bills and the fact that I have food to eat, even though it's the basic things that I have today. And I had a very friendly neighbor that, gave me some flowers. And so if we start to not compare the past and what we had, and we start living in this gratitude that I hear you say in the present, it's beautiful to really feed this positive attitude that you have. I want to bottle it, Marni, and I want to just hand it out to all the listeners.
Well, why don't you bottle it and call it the attitude of gratitude?
There we go. We are doing it.
But we are doing it. And I feel that even through my writing, but also my speaking and us having candid conversations like this, I think we are spreading a ripple effect of positivity. Because if someone could see that another person who has gone through challenges chooses to handle these challenges with love, compassion, forgiveness, goodness, honesty, then that could give them hope that they could go through this as well. So I think, anyone tuning in can feel the love, can feel the positivity. And it is a choice. And some of the toughest situations that bring us into darkness eventually bring us into light.
So Marni, wow. I've enjoyed our conversation so much today. Your website, I think I have your website, godcametomygaragesale.com.
Yes.
And that's also the title of your book. Can the listeners, if they want to get any of your workbooks or even the crossword puzzle, I would love a crossword puzzle. Where can they find it? Just through your website?
Well, you can find it on the website, but all my books, which are with Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House, can be either found at the publisher or found on Amazon, found at Barnes & Noble. And because I've done book signings around the country and in many places, there are many different local bookstores that are picking up my book and selling it on their shelves.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. But if people also find that they are in a tough situation financially and can't order all these paperback books, even though they're very reasonably priced, you can find electronic versions for just $3.99. So that you can take a look at any of the books that I have written. And also there are just so many other people out there that have put out such quality work on various topics. I would say check them out and check out other podcasters. Like already the people that are listening to your podcast know the value of conversations that you have and the topics that you address. And I think just knowledge is power. So reach out and try to arm yourself with some tools that will help you move past some of the trauma so that you can live the beautiful, wonderful life that you are meant to live.
That is very well said, Marni. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure just having you here today, having this conversation. It was incredible. And I want to say thank you for inspiring the listeners just to live their best life and to overcome their challenges by, I guess, choosing how they respond to the adversity in their life.
Right.
I love this message that our challenges are our blessings that can help us to really self-actualize. So thank you. Thank you again for standing in service of humanity and for standing with me in service.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been an honor to be here and, just amazing that, we have the capabilities and technologies to just make a global effort and, a plea for those that have gone through challenges, that there is hope and that they can get through this.
Fantastic. Marni, it's been a pleasure. Take care.
Well, thank you. Take care.
That wraps up this podcast episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, please take a minute to give me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast directory so you don't miss an episode. Please consider following My Centered Life on Facebook and Instagram for daily inspiration. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. You can catch me again in the next episode. Same time, same place. Sending you lots of love and light. Bye.